From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo. This is From the South. Two more social leaders have been killed in Colombia. Musician and cultural director Gilberto Valencia was shot on Tuesday in the Cauca department, making him the first social leader killed in 2019. And on the night of December 31st, communal leader Jesus Adier Perafa was shot dead in the Caicedonia municipality. These two murders bring the total number of social leaders killed under the presidency of Iván Duque to 86. Our correspondent in Bogotá, Tatiana Portella, has the details.
More social leaders have been murdered in Colombia. Musician and cultural director Gilberto Valencia was shot on Tuesday in the Cauca department, the first social leader killed in 2019. Jesus Adier Perafan was the founder of the Coraje of Caicedonia political organization based in the Cauca department. Men gunned him down in his home. He was immediately taken to a hospital but didn't survive. 88 social leaders have been murdered since Iván Duque took office. Since 2016 up until now, more than 548 social leaders have been murdered. Social organizations are demanding violence and these murders to stop. They also want President Duque to meet with their representatives in order to stop the killings. But this request has been denied by the administration.
The new Brazilian government has announced a purge of contractors. The chief of staff has announced that the administration is terminating contracts for companies that do not share the administration's right-wing ideology. The purge is expected to target companies that are perceived to be sympathetic to the Workers' Party.
It doesn't make sense to have a government with a profile like ours to keep on people who support another way of thinking, another political system, another way to organize society.
Brazil's new president, Jair Bolsonaro, has signed a decree that will allow the government to supervise the work of NGOs and other international organizations. The measure gives the Office of the Cabinet Secretary powers to monitor and coordinate their work. The temporary decree will expire in 120 days, unless it is upheld by the Congress. The Workers' Party has condemned the first measures taken by the new Brazilian government. Our correspondent in Sao Paulo, Ignacio Lemus, has more.
Following the first 24 hours after Jair Bolsonaro came to power, the Workers' Party has released a statement condemning the first measures taken by his government. Among the points mentioned were the measures announced by the Minister of Economy, Paulo Guedes, on privatizations, and particularly the privatization of Eletrobras. This was a privatization which was not completed by the government of Michel Temer. Also, the reduction of social spending, where the first measure by the government of Bolsonaro was to increase the minimum wage by less than the amount earlier proposed for the minimum wage in 2019. This will be an increase to $260, which is $8 less than promised, an amount that may seem insignificant, but it's equivalent to a bag of beans or lentils or rice or corn for families with less financial resources, something that would have a large impact on the overall budgets of families. Other important points on measures taken by the Minister of Economy include the restructuring of the pension system. Paulo Guedes, of course, studied in the United States. He's a Chicago boy who also lived in Chile. There's speculation that the restructuring of the pension system may take the shape of the Chilean retirement system. The Workers' Party also rejected the policies regarding indigenous peoples in Brazil. The government's done away with a decision regarding the demarcation of land by the National Foundation for Indigenous Peoples, and now the policies are led by the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock. This ministry is dominated by landowner interests, a sector which is an enemy of the indigenous peoples, a sector which has an interest in extractivist projects on the land of indigenous peoples. So this opens the way to a new period of genocide of indigenous peoples and an opening for mining projects throughout the Brazilian Amazon. This has also been denounced by the Workers' Party. In all, 17 policies were condemned. LGBT people have also been stripped of rights in a country where this section of the population suffers extremely high murder rates. The old Ministry of Human Rights, which has now been transformed into the Ministry of Women, Family and Human Rights, will no longer have within its remit the defense of LGBT people. It's been proposed by the Workers' Party, the Socialism and Liberty Party and the Communist Party Brazil that there must not be just opposition to proposals, but they must form an opposition which is critical actively of the government of Jair Bolsonaro as he wages social and economic attacks, and also as he wages attacks on opposition parties and on social movements.
We thank Ignacio Lemos for that report. The Workers' Party is also calling for an investigation after police officers broke into the offices of several of their members of Congress. The party said this is a worrying sign of the danger that lies ahead for Brazil's democracy under Jair Bolsonaro's presidency. It added that the conduct of the police was not only a violation of the lawmakers' rights, but also a violation of Brazil's democracy. And China has said that its cooperation with Latin American countries benefits both interests. A ministry spokesperson said that they are cooperating on the basis of mutual respect, equality, and mutual benefit. He also made special reference to Brazil, highlighting that country as an important emerging economy. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro sat down for a special interview with Ignacio Ramonet just over a week before he is sworn in for another presidential term. Among various topics, Maduro spoke on the role and the disintegration of the opposition in the country.
Another clear indication were the sad scenes they showed when they had to register their candidates for the presidential elections of May 20th. They complied with what was ordered of them from the international right-wing groups and from the North American imperialistic forces. This has unfortunately caused their demise, because Venezuela needs an opposition and a political opposition force. I have called for there to be dialogue over 400 times. I maintain this. Any actor from the opposition in their current situation who would like to speak to me has an open door, an open mind, and a willingness to speak about the future of the country. I think that sooner or later in Venezuela there will be political conversations which will be diverse and include all political and ideological forces of that opposition. I keep faith, and I will work so that there will be a fruitful political dialogue in Venezuela in 2019. This will hopefully allow to rebuild a political opposition that the country requires in order to have tranquility, peace, and a diverse democracy, which is what we yearn for.
President Maduro also spoke about the effects of the economic blockade and what he called the persecution of many aspects of the economic life of Venezuelan citizens.
They're persecuting us in the purchases that we make in products worldwide. This includes food and medicine. It is a brutal persecution. What they are doing to Venezuela is frankly criminal. A financial blockade. Yes, I would say that it is more than a simple blockade, because sometimes a blockade is done simply to stop you from going somewhere. I put down an obstacle, and you can't go further than that. But this is more than a blockade. It is a persecution. Persecution to our bank accounts, to the business that Venezuela carries out with the world. Persecution to commerce, to purchases. Euroclear withheld in 2018 for $1.4 billion, which we were going to use to buy medicine, consumables, to buy food, and nobody says anything at all. We have reported this to the UN, to the General Secretary of the UN. I have reported this to the different organisms. You reported this in UN speech, of course, and nobody says anything. So we have to fight to free ourselves, to release ourselves from the shackles of this persecution and this huge blockade.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Less than a week into the new year, at least 2 women have lost their lives to acts of gender-based violence in Bolivia. The country has one of the highest femicide rates in South America. Our correspondent Freddy Morales from La Paz brings us the details.
While the murders of 2 women are still being investigated, law enforcement has already received reports of a third gender-based killing, which is said to have happened over the first couple days of the new year. These recent incidents have resurrected concern about untamed, widespread acts of violence perpetrated against women in Bolivia. In 2018, there were at least 100 recorded cases of gender-based violence. Many more also go unreported. Last November, a special multi-ministry commission headed by President Evo Morales was set up to tackle the growing femicide rate. The commission is tasked with developing a package of new legislation to strengthen the protection of women and children. President Morales has said that these laws need to be urgently enacted. Bolivia's rising femicide rate is mostly attributed to the very patriarchal social system that exists. Perpetrators face up to 30 years in prison for the murder of women.
And Ecuador's National Assembly will debate the decriminalization of abortion. Lawmakers will discuss permitting abortion in cases of rape, incest, and fetal abnormalities. The changes would be part of a reform to the country's criminal code. It comes as feminist groups in Ecuador have been protesting against gender violence. Our correspondent in Ecuador, Denise Herrera, has more details.
We are outside the National Assembly in Quito, where the plenary session of the National Assembly will discuss the criminal code today. One of the main topics in the discussion is the decriminalization of the abortion. So we are outside with social organizations of women who are defending their rights. They are demanding a legal, a safe abortion today here in Ecuador. Also, other social organizations of citizens have gathered outside the National Assembly in rejection of this discussion. They say that women have to take care of their children. So we are in the middle of this discussion. We have to wait if the National Assembly will decide if the decriminalization of the abortion will be legal or not here in Ecuador today.
We thank Denise for that report. 5 men arrested in Argentina for allegedly gang raping a 14-year-old girl have protested their innocence. They are between the ages of 21 and 23. The attack allegedly took place in the coastal city of Miramar. According to the police reports, the girl's parents found her drugged in a tent surrounded by the alleged perpetrators. The men appeared in court for the first time this Wednesday. They are accused of aggravated sexual abuse. They will remain detained until the end of the trial. And the 5 Spanish men accused of gang raping a young woman will remain free while their trial continues. Our correspondent Eduardo Marín explains.
The 5 men known as the Wolf Pack will remain free while their case continues. They were sentenced to 9 years in prison for sexually abusing an 18-year-old girl during the San Fermines festivity in 2016, a sentence they've appealed to. The public prosecutor requested the men to be imprisoned, but that was rejected by a regional court. This request was made on December 7th, only 2 days after the Supreme Court confirmed the sentence. That day, the Supreme Court listed the crime as sexual abuse and not sexual aggression, as prosecutors asked. According to the court, there is no risk of neither of them repeating the crime nor leaving the country. The case will now go to the Supreme Court, where their defense will ask for their release. For his part, the prosecutor will ask for the crime to be listed as a sexual aggression so they can face a sentence higher than 9 years.
We thank Edu for that report. Argentinians have been defending their sovereignty over the Malvinas Islands on the anniversary of the British occupation of the islands. People gathered in front of the foreign ministry to insist that the Malvinas are Argentinian, 186 years after Britain first took control of them. In a statement released on Thursday, the government reasserted its right to the territory. In 1982, the two countries went to war over the islands. In Chile, the trial of the police officer who severely injured a young Mapuche man with a shotgun has begun after a nearly 2-year delay.
Different social organizations demand justice for Brandon Hernandez Huentacol, the Mapuche man whose case has long been delayed.
We know that the Chilean National Police Force is an institution that protects offenders in their ranks. It's an institution that is willing to use their resources to protect these people, as we, as feminists, have seen this in other cases.
The incident happened 2 years ago when Second Sergeant Christian Rivera shot Brandon with a shotgun, leaving almost 200 pellets in his body. The young Mapuche man was shot from a distance of less than 40 centimetres and it destroyed his hip. He has undergone more than 15 operations so far, but about 80 pellets cannot be removed from his body. The lead in the pellets will continue contaminating his organs and causing him pain.
We do not regard this as a simple case of negligence, but as a constant institutional attack against the Mapuche community in the Valmarco region. Therefore, we want to show huge support for Brandon Hernandez Huentecol, who is part of the Mapuche community.
This is Christian Rivera. He is backed by the Chilean National Police and insists that he shot Brandon accidentally during an operation in the community.
Soy la mamá de Brandon. Al niño que balearon ustedes mismos hace 2 años.
Since December 18, 2016, Ada Huentecol, Brandon's mother, has confronted police officers who have continued the harassment, even until just a few hours before the trial finally began. Ada and her family, until the moment that changed their lives, did not participate in the Mapuche movement and were isolated in a Christian community in Curacao, in the south of the country. It was there where carabineros arrived to control Mapuches as part of their campaign of repression. The youngest son came out to look, they stopped him, Brandon tried to intervene, but was turned upon with weapons of war.
He hit me with his gun, and afterwards I get up and ask him to calm down, because we were doing nothing wrong. My brother was watching everything. They had him on his knees, pointing a revolver at him.
His only crime being part of the Mapuche community.
When the carabinero drew his weapon, I heard that it was loaded, and I said, "Why is there a bullet in there?" And that very moment he shot.
That's why they're asking for punishment to the full extent of the law and a reappraisal of the crime as attempted homicide in a case that for the Mapuche community, above all.
Guyana's House Speaker has declined to rule on whether the December 21st no-confidence motion was illegal. He has instead referred to the matter to the courts. 2 weeks ago, the passing of the no-confidence motion effectively toppled the government. The legality of that vote and the conduct of the government MP who joined with the opposition on it have come into question. While addressing empty opposition benches, the Speaker informed that the matter is now out of his hands.
And the second is full, final and complete settlement of these issues by a court of competent jurisdiction will place beyond doubt any question which may exist and serve to give guidance to the Speaker and to the National Assembly for the future.
After the revolution, the Cuban government wanted people from all social backgrounds to have access to arts and culture. More in this report.
Poet and ethnologist Miguel Barnett met Fidel Castro in 1961. On that day, Fidel drafted the action plan regarding culture, measures that have been maintained for 60 years. For Fidel, culture had to reach everyone, not only the elites.
Fidel es un iluminado.
Fidel knew this is what he wanted to promote way before speaking to the people involved in culture. It has been a constant fight, but we hope that our youth preserves Fidel's message.
After Fidel's message, it was clear the teaching of arts would become the door to access culture no matter the social background.
Fidel shaped the right to create. The new constitution draft that is being debated protects the artistic freedom and everything that is created by artists.
One of the priorities of the revolutionary government in Cuba was for people to appreciate culture. The most remote places in the island, therefore, would have cinemas, ballet school, and art education. Programs focused in the arts became free for all, both in the school and university systems.
I think that the ideals of the revolution will survive, and this can be possible also if the cultural revolution that was pushed in the island is protected. This has a lot to do with the men and women the revolution is shaping, and that has to do with culture. It is not only about assets. Those are important, but not enough. Culture is key for a society to find the best way to transform itself.
Fidel Castro knew that a revolution can only be achieved through culture and ideas. That's why he made sure that culture was always protected, even in the worst time of economic crisis.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. The 116th United States Congress has been sworn in, with some hailing it as the most diverse in the history of the country. The Congress has a record number of women, 2 Muslim women, 2 Native American women, a member under the age of 30, and the first Latina member representing the state of Texas.
So help you God. And I think that, political representation is really important for women and for women of color. And I think I had to be here today to celebrate, I think, this turning point in American history. And I look forward to what's coming.
Democrat Nancy Pelosi has been chosen House Speaker for the House of Representatives in the United States. Her election ends an 8-year-long era of Republican majority in the House. This is the second time she becomes House Speaker and is the only woman so far to hold the post.
Prayerfulness in the face of challenges ahead.
5 Nigerian Air Force officers have died when their helicopter crashed while in combat against Boko Haram militants. A statement by the Air Force said the helicopter was providing air support to ground troops who were raiding a Boko Haram meeting venue in northern Borno State. The exact cause of the crash remains unclear as investigations are still underway. And finally, people in the Democratic Republic of the Congo recently went to the polls in a crucial election. Earlier, we spoke to the Executive Director of Friends of the Congo, Maurice Carney, to understand the importance of this process.
There's a profound desire on the part of the Congolese people for change. They want an end to the insecurity. They want an end to the extreme poverty. They want an end to the pillaging of their resources. The Kabila regime, which arrived in power with the backing of Western nations, has continued to provide unfettered access to Congo's riches to Western corporations. And the Congolese people are saying, we want to benefit from our wealth. We want clean water. We want electricity. We want health care. We want jobs. And this government is not providing that. They're working in cahoots with international finance capital.
And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Stefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.